Good Rising Tribe SRC. I am Manala D, your host, and we are excited to bring you the 7th episode of The Power of Human Connectivity. We thank our SRC Mastermind contributors for being here. And as always, we thank you, our audience, for sharing your energy with us today. Now, SRC loves it when we have participation from our audience. Have a question, want to make a point, raise your hand, unmute your mic, and join in the conversation regarding the topic on the table. Now, we already know what time it is, and what I'm about to say is very, very important. So I want you to take a moment and send to your family and friends the link that you use to connect to this live broadcast, because you already know it's going to be good. So let's get this party started. Now, as we unpack today, let us keep this scripture in mind. Colossians 1:29, and I'm going to read from the English Standard Version today. For this I told, struggling with all his energy, that he powerfully works within me. Now, we believe that this scripture in Colossians 1:29 is appropriate, as I believe that Pastor Archie will share that as human beings, we are composed of energy and matter. We have already learned in the past episodes that we are the essence of God wearing flesh suits, right, in this earth, and that Christ is the operating power of God illuminating within each of us. Therefore, when meditating on the passage of scripture I just shared, you may come to realize that as spiritual beings operating as humans in this earth, we struggle with immense energy and power that operates within us. And to help us understand this struggle, Pastor Archie Sanders, a biblical scholar in religious and spiritual studies, will open up today with a deep dive into the topic of the 10 spheres of the spirit. Now, I'm excited regarding this topic. And if you know Pastor Archie, you already know he is going to unpack with wisdom, knowledge, and provide understanding. So let's welcome Pastor Archie Sanders.
Good morning, good rising, top of the morning. I am excited. I'm with an exclamation point. I am so glad to be here today and to share some knowledge that I find myself to be really, really interesting to me. So I'm gonna jump right in here, and we'll still talk about human connectivity, how we connect, and you're going to see some awesome stuff today. You're going to hear some stuff that is really good. Now, my reference that I'm using is Meta, the volume 1, and you can go to your bookstore and get that. And I believe after today, you're going to want to get this book and begin to look at some of the things about us. So we're talking about the 10 spheres of the spirit. First of all, let me define sphere. A sphere is the place of environment within which a person or thing exists, a field of activity or operation. You are operating in a certain area as a sphere, for example, to be out of one's professional sphere. You're a doctor and you're trying to be a mechanic. So, I think you get the picture. So self-knowledge is seen as the beginning and end of all knowledge. By looking at the reference to the purpose of the creation of the world, who and what man is can only be understood. That's the only way you can basically understand. I have learned that the essential state of the supreme being is one in which its energy/matter is not differentiated into things. God lacks experience in its essential state. In accordance with my reference, Meta, God modifies its essence into the world as the means through which to have experience. Although there is a infinitude of creatures making up the world, only one of them was created for the express purpose of serving as the vehicle through which God can transfer its consciousness into and realize the fullness of its being. And guess who that creature is? That is man. That is man. The knowledge of this spiritual fact has been expressed in many of the scriptures of the world. In the Comedian, which is the ancient Egyptian scripture, the book of the knowing, this is a reference here, y'all, and you can get it, but it is expensive. The book of knowing the manifestations of Ra, which was written around 2800 BC. We come across the following statements regarding Alsar, who is the symbol of the man or woman, and the man or woman who has completed his or her spiritual growth. That's who Alsar is. Enabling God to manifest itself in the world through him or her. Now we get into some good stuff because this human connectivity is really good here. Now, this is a quote that came from that book. I produced myself from primeval matter. My name is Asar, from the primeval matter or primeval matter. I have succeeded in all that I have willed on earth. We talk about Asar, the top of the tree of life. I was alone, not born were they. Not had I spit in the form of Shu, not had I emitted Tefnut. Shu is heat, and Tefnut is water. It's cool, cold. I brought through my mouth my own name, that is to say, a word of power. I came into being in the forms of the infinite power of being, which is Kefira. That's the end of that quote. Now, the same awareness is expressed in Genesis 1 and 26. Watch this here, y'all. It's getting good. Which states that God makes man in their own likeness, while the above makes a great deal of sense from a spiritual philosophical standpoint. It flies in the face of man's common experience. And most people don't experience this, but we're going to get to some good stuff here in a minute. If man is made in the likeness of God, then why is this fact not evident in our daily experience? If man is made in the likeness of God, why don't we experience that daily? Well, the answer is a simple one. Mankind as a whole has not completed its evolution growth. In the same way that a 3-year-old has the faculties of an adult in a latent state, so do the majority of people today have their divine faculties in a dormant state. See the difference? You see a little child, you know that child has potential. It's in there, but they're not old enough. They haven't experienced it yet, so they'll get there. Now, the same thing with adults. See what it says? Adults have their divine faculties in a dormant state. Even though we said last week, people always say that, yeah, God is in me, but you are not living at that level yet. And you're going to see why. So we are born with spears, and we'll talk about 10 spears of the spirit. We're born with spears. We're born starting with the 10th spear, which is our physical body with its animating spirit. That's 10 and 9. The personality division of our spirit and learning faculty in an awakened state, and we develop from the bottom up, y'all. We develop from the 10th spear up to 1, where Alsar is 0 above that 1. And you have to get the book to really get deep into this, but I'm gonna introduce it to you. So you work from the bottom up. All the other faculties represented by spears 8 to 1 are in a dormant state. That is why we all come here in Spirit 10 and 9. Keep that in mind. Watch this. Human connectivity is great. The first 28 years of our life is spent awakening and developing the 8th and 7th spheres. Remember, 10 and 9, everybody's born right there. But the next 28 years is spent developing the 8th and 7th spheres. These are our syllogistic, logical, and inventive / artistic faculties, respectively. The 8th and 7th spheres correspond to the celestial workers and are therefore the faculties that we utilize primarily in making a living. I think somebody can relate now. Spheres 8 equal to technologies, commerce, etc. Sphere 7 equal to scientific and artistic invention. If the social order is enlightened, the following 21 years are devoted to the awakening of our moral and mental abstracted faculties. Unfortunately, most societies lack the knowledge of how to spiritually cultivate their citizens, so that the majority fails to develop the moral part of their spirit, which is 6, 5, and 4. Remember, we're going from 10 up. So most people don't even develop 6, 5, and 4. We will see that there are a great number of behavioral expressions of an amorous nature that the majority of people in the world is incapable of recognizing as such. Most people don't even realize that they are living immorally. They don't recognize it. If an individual is able to develop these mental faculties, which is spheres 4, 5, and 6, he becomes a candidate to develop the divine faculties, where everybody wants to be at, where everybody say they are. When an individual develops the faculty of the 3rd sphere, he/she has the ability to influence events in the environment through the use of words of power, i.e. the person shares in the omnipotence of the supreme being, although not in the same magnitude. The 2nd sphere faculty enables the person to intuitively understand all of life's situations. That's in sphere. When you're in sphere, if you develop sphere 2, which is most of the sages and mediums and things, people of that sort, you are able, good Lord Almighty, to intuitively understand all of life's situations. This is wisdom or omniscience. That's what that is right there. See, and everyone wants that. The development of the 1st sphere enables man to experience the fact that this person and that of all others are parts of one being. For example, although a person's physical body is made up of billions of cells, which are individual creatures, it is experienced as one creature. Paul even talked about it. He talked about the body parts, but it's billions of cells, but they act as one. This experience of oneness is beyond the intellectual understanding of oneness that most people hold in common. Before we can embark on a full explanation of the differences between the various stages of man's development, we must have a full understanding of the faculties making up his spirit. By studying Meta Netter, I have come to have a better understanding of myself. And I believe that if you pick up Meta Netter, Volume 1, you will get a better understanding of yourself also.
Thank you, Pastor Archie. That was great. So you were talking about the 10 spheres of the spirit. So
yeah,
when you think about it, so because we understand the chakra, and there's the chakra. And now we're talking about the 10 spheres, which is the tree of life. So it sounds like when everyone comes to this earth, based on what you said, everyone comes in at the level of 1 or 10?
Nope. 10, they come in, everyone is born into spirit 10, that is awakening, and spirit 9, that is awakening. And that is where we all start at that level.
So we would look at that on, if you were thinking about the chakra, you would look at that, that would be like the root. So you come in, and most people spend the next 28 years, based on what I'm understanding, supposedly understanding who they are. But then I also heard you say that some people never get beyond that childlike state, you know, and that's, and so let's open this up to our, let's open this up now to our contributors. Lavelle, what would you add to what Pastor Archie just mentioned now on these 10 spheres of the spirit? Brother Lavelle.
I see it as being very consistent, what he has shared and described. I see it as very consistent with what I have studied in numerology, and also the bit that I've studied in astrology. One good point that he made is when you hit that year 28 of your life, there's a lot of changes and there's a lot of growth and development that people go through. Now, people who don't go through the growth, the development, the change, or the transformation in their life, they do remain in that state as though they were like a child. And so they have a very difficult time for their on developing in society and contributing to society in a way that they are becoming a light being, a person who can have authority in society. And so that's why you have so many souls right now. They're doing despicable acts, even though they look like they're 40, 45, 50 years old, because they haven't out of their childlike state. And so there are periods of growth and development, and he described them very well. I'm in full agreement. It's very consistent with the astrology and the numerology.
Great. So what is some of the things, what is something, Pastor Archie? So now you come in, and we all understand that we're coming in on ground level, per se.
Yes.
So what do we do? What is the people on our audience today? What is that thing that you tell them to help their children with? So you have a child, you don't want that child to still be, at 50 years old, still in your house, because they haven't developed, we say the tree of life. And, I have a tree of life behind me, and the tree of life, when you think about the limbs, it just connects to so much. That's when you think about the tree of life, it's that human connectivity we're talking about. So what do we do? What is that thing that the parents should do to help their children to develop? Because we were taught when we were growing up, discipline, spare the rod, spoil the child. Obviously that is not working. Because if it was working, we wouldn't have all the issues we see in the world today, right? So what do we do?
That's awesome, Manala, because see, as I sit here and think about it, most of the time we try to, if you watch adults raising children, they try to train them by giving them things and new things and inventions and this thing and that thing, and you feel that that's going to make that a better child. It never does make them a better child. They have to develop from the inside. First of all, and we start with teaching our children how to be respectful and, following the rules and holding out. Some people, as I've experienced in the military, likes to stay at that animal level. They like it there. They don't want the responsibility of moving up. The chakra shows us physically what parts we are dealing with as we try to move up to the seventh chakra. But as I said, in the spirit, you start from the 10th up to 1. And as you grow, you develop. So the parent must know, first of all, and understand the spirits of the spirit themselves. And you start in that household. If you start the teaching your child in the household, and they begin to understand how they are to get out of that animal way of thinking. Again, let me tell you what 10 and 9 is. Everybody is born here in 10 and 9. And our physical body with its animated spirit, everybody, you notice a baby. Some babies you say, wow, that baby's been here before. Or they, they're real smart. But we're all born right there at 10 and 9. And that's where our personality is developed at.
But how do you develop that personality? What do you say to that child? What do you do? And I heard you say that, yes, we got to start from the inside. Give these our audience, these especially these young parents, what is that one thing that they need to do to help that child develop? Is it education? Do we teach them about what we are learning about right here? Because, a lot of times we take our children to church and everybody's kind of screaming at them, and then you take them home. But really, what do they really learn? So do we sit them down and say, well, that child stomping their feet saying, I want a cookie, and you just hand them the cookie like you just mentioned, just giving them things? Or do you say, now listen, do you teach them that is a part, it's your body, your physical body desiring this, but let's think about that cookie. Is that a way that we can maybe teach our children so they can understand that perhaps they don't need this cookie right now, so they can take control over their own thoughts versus allowing their minds? And people think we can't do this until the child gets 15. Maybe that's too late. Maybe we need to start earlier.
See, you're on to something now, because see, you teach your baby while the baby is really in your stomach. You begin to talk to that baby. And see, here's the real key right here. In my opinion, this is the real key. The adult themselves. If you have an undisciplined child, that child grows up to be an undisciplined adult. So if they're not taught, if you don't sit them down and explain to them nutrition and what helps their body the most, and you can't eat so much. Anything that you eat too much of is really not that good for you. So as the parent really is the key. The parent must understand the spiritual aspect themselves.
That's right.
Before they can teach the child. Because think about it. We always say, well, man, diabetes runs in my house. You ate every sweet thing that you could eat, and you were allowed to do it. And now as you grow up, you do the same thing. You think that something is against you. Only thing against you is that you came up eating a certain way. And now you take on these things that mess your body up. But if you were taught by the parent, and I understand I'm a country boy, we came up eating ham hocks, chitlins, and all fried chicken, and this is all we had. I mean, this
some
is
people
what kept
hungry.
us alive. Yeah. Your parent, the adult in your life, has to be able to understand themselves about the spirit and how you'll grow, how you grow in the spirit, and what's affecting that child. We got to be able to look at that child and say, whoa, wait a minute. Now this child is 10, but he or she is acting as though they are 1. You have to train. Now don't get me wrong. Now there are mental issues with some people. If your children have mental issues, they must be put before a professional who is able to deal with that. You understand? I'm not telling people to go out and be a doctor or a psychiatrist for their child, but you got to be able to see as a parent where your child is at. That's and right. How they are developing.
That's
so
right.
We have to develop, y'all.
That's right. So let's look at this. Now let's look at, and I want to ask Keena this question, because I know that she has young children. I mean, my children are grown, so I asked somebody this question who has some young children in their life. So suppose one of the things that one of the tools we could use is if we took our children out and we talked about a tree, we took them out to nature and we explained how the roots of a tree, how it's all connected and how each of those trees help each other. See, because when you talk about human connectivity and teaching our children and even making sure that we understand ourselves, if you look at nature, what do you see? If we can teach our children from that aspect, is that one of the ways that we can teach them that we're all connected? Because Pastor Archie, you talked about connectivity, but that's where it starts at. And people don't realize that they are connected. If we can't teach our children that they are connected to everything. So how is that one of the ways you think that we could teach our children? Kina, what are your thoughts on what Pastor Archie has been talking about today? He's talking about the 10 spheres of spirit through human connectivity.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I enjoyed it. Thank you, Pastor Archie. I've been taking notes and I appreciate you for bringing this information to my awareness. And like Brother Lavelle shared, I immediately related it to astrology because at the age of 28, 29, that's your Saturn return. You know, we know about our birthdays. That's when the sun makes one rotation, but Saturn is that 28, 29, 30-year mark. And it's typically when people have an experience, a life-changing, an opportunity to really look at responsibility, to become aware of yourself and your responsibility, not only to yourself, but in the world. But for me, as far as me, I do have a young child. And my thing that as far as nature is concerned as well, Anala, is yes, definitely making him aware that everything is connected. And one day he was in the backyard and it was a pile of ant piles. And he had a stick and he was going to town, tearing up the ant pile. And I'm like, Nancy, you know, let's talk about this. So we spoke about it. I said, this is where they live. This is their home. This is their community. They work hard to build this mound, to build this place. You know, this is where they eat. This is their community. And, you know, we talked about it. I said, were they bothering you? And he said, no. So we had this conversation. I said, what if there were these big, huge creatures in our world that could just come over and just stomp around and tear up our home? How would you feel? And he was like, that would be good. And, you know, I just had that moment to share with him about how everything is connected, how there are systems in the world. We have our system that we're aware of, that we're conscious of as human beings. There are a lot of other smaller systems, some systems we can't see. When you get down to the biology and bacteria, and there are some things we can even see with the human eye, but they're all systems, they're all important systems, and they're all connected to each other. But specifically I want to share too, as far as children is concerned, and it's teaching empathy. I think a part of the self-awareness, a part of your development as an individual and reaching these higher levels, I think empathy is very important. You know, realizing that, you know your feelings, you know about your emotions, your wants, needs, and desires. It's recognizing that everyone has them. You know, it's not just about you, you know, to respect other people's feelings and desires. Also, definitely self-awareness is key too in this developmental process, and compassion. Those are the three things that I wrote down as I was listening to Pastor Archie.
Great. And self-awareness, because Pastor Archie mentioned self-awareness, and I'm glad you brought us back to that, because self-awareness also includes understanding self, understanding who you are. So if we still believe that we were just some modification of life, that somebody just, you know, we have some little speck of dust, we don't really respect ourselves enough, and we're not going to respect other people. So until we understand who we are, until we understand that we are gods walking around in flesh suits, we're not going to act that way. So self-awareness is so, so important. Who in the Bible even says, who did they say I am? So that's the question. When you read the Bible, think about the Bible as a tool that was left for you to remember who you are. Don't look at somebody talking about Peter, Paul, and all those people. It's talking about us remembering who we are. So if I ask myself, who am I? I need to know the answer to that. If you don't have a self-awareness. And I think Archie Neville Goddard talked about that too, didn't he? About being self-aware. If you're not sure of who you are and you're depending on someone else to come down from the sky one day and help you, then you're going to be lost. So the first thing, I would think the first step is self-awareness. And that is the first thing that we need to teach our children, I believe, is self-awareness. I know that Brother Lavelle talks all the time about other people know more about us than we know about ourselves. So what do we do with our children? We need to teach them who they are. And that is, I believe, that is the key. Pastor Archie?
Yeah, that's awesome, Anala, because I always say that, for instance, a racist was taught how to become a racist. You can put all kinds of colors of kids together and that have not been trained in that aspect of life and begin to train them. The way that you train them is what they're going to know. Yes, Kena, yes, ma'am. Empathy is very important. So is sympathy. They're different. They're different. You know, I can empathize with you and help you to grow, but sympathy may make me become a something to lean on. So as you teach them coming up, it's up again back to the parent. Kids aren't what they are, except they are following what the adults are teaching them to do. And if the adults don't understand who they are, if all they were aware of is what their parents called them when they were coming up, that were not educated to understand who they were, they called them all these names. You ain't this, you ain't that, you just like your daddy, you just like your mama, you ain't gonna be this. See, if they had that kind of education, I will call it education, because see, that's how a lot of us were educated, that by a parent that did not have an understanding spiritually as who they were. So they called you everything under the sun.
That's right.
And some of us took on that, but then a child leads the way a lot of times. I think that's in the Bible. A child leads the way, and some children, what they think from within instead of thinking outside, they begin to grow and come to understand that, wait a minute, I'm not going to be that. I'm not going to be that. And something within them began to teach them. We have to understand that God is in us. He sits at 0 in the sphere above 1. And if you look back at what I said about the whole spirit, abstractedly, if we don't learn to think abstractedly, we'll always be thinking about what someone else told us.
That's right. That's exactly right. Now I want to just ask about the 0 you just mentioned, because I think that is important, because you said that the highest consciousness sets at 0. And if you think about 0 is neither negative nor is 0 positive, is it? So when you talk about 0, and look at the aspect of our lives, because who we are as humans, who we are as humans is that we have the power to do anything. In fact, in the book that you mentioned, Archie, it says that it said that we are devoid of limitations. Now, if we are devoid of limitations, why are humans, and I'm putting this question out there, why is it that we see, it appears to be so many limitations in this world? If we are devoid of limitations, Candace should have everything that she desires. Carly Brown, everybody on here should have, good health. There should be no limitation of what you can possess. So what is the challenge here? What is the challenge? We need to give that to our audience.
Okay, the audience is not speaking quick enough, so I just need to get this thought out here. And as I said before, you have to understand that you must move above those two spheres that you're in. Just wanting and desiring is not enough.
How do I get there?
You got to see, as you are there, we're all the same, we're born the same. Why are you more prosperous than me? Our education, what we learn from others is fine. But as I said, God works from the inside out and begin to bring things as you look for things. Somebody didn't tell me to look up meta. My interest was in why we can't connect with each other. Why all the time I preach many sermons that people could make your hair stand up on your head, but at the end of the day, the people still went home and lived hellishly. And it really bothered me. So I decided that I got to find out why we are acting the way that we're acting. And it all comes down to knowing, first of all, who you are. Yes, that power up there, zero, everyone wants to have that, but it's not activated.
That is true. We have one of our audience, Carly Brown, has unmuted themselves. So therefore, perhaps they have a statement or a question, Archie, and then we'll come back to that, because you're absolutely right, not knowing who you are. Carly Brown, did you have something you wanted to say? Okay, we guess not. She's just unmuted. But yes, Pastor Archie, you're absolutely right. Not knowing who we are. So the first thing we should do is understand who we are, and we don't get that from the outside, do we? Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. I see Mark Thomas has unmuted himself. So let's go to Mark Thomas.
Yeah, great presentation there, Pastor Archie. Loved it. Question for you. Just a comment, but kind of a question, and maybe you can expand on this. You talked about in your presentation about how in Genesis, how it was described how man was created in the image, right?
Yes.
So we're talking about human beings. We're talking about the being part of being human, right? And the divinity that is possible within human beings. Is that not right? Is that what we're talking about in effect, a lot of it?
Yes, sir. Divinity, but it sits at the top of the spirit. This is the thing, Mark, is that part of us as a being is where you are elevated in the higher consciousness of your thinking. And most of us don't get that far. We stay down there at the animalistic way of thinking because everything around us influences us, and we're not looking on the inside of us, trying to move up. Because as I say, zero is where we were created. That's a supreme being. That is where there is no male or female. You're not thinking that way. You don't see, you are white and I'm black. In that area, your thinking is totally in I can say abstract way of thinking. You're not seeing things as most individuals see them. You're up there with the mediums and the sages who can see the situation. You see, as I explained, the different spheres. As you get into different spheres, you're thinking differently. You want that divine nature, and you can have the divine nature, but you must think above the animalistic way of thinking. You understand?
And the way you start is just by being aware of those spheres, right? You have to be aware first.
Yes, you must be taught, Mark. You must be taught. Just like me, God is in me, and He has put me out here, and I realize that He has made me to be an awesome power on this earth, using me to help people to understand who they are and why they're not evolving. They don't understand Mark, they don't understand why they see me and you together. I'm hugging you like, we just born brothers, and we are brothers. But we see, if your spirit, see, y'all just get me so excited about this thing, because if your spirit is not elevated, if you're not there, you'll always be a hell raiser. You'll always be a hot, and in Metanetter, you'll find out that there are hot people. They are hot. They are anxious people. They're impatient. They don't have no patience with anybody. They're hot-headed. You heard of hot-headed people. And so when the time comes for them to be cool, it's hard for them to act cool. But up in there where God is at, you can go from one personality to another at any given moment, because you think there. You are able to have empathy, Keena, because you can empathize with people and know when it's time to sympathize with them, because you live in that area. Talk to mediums and sages. They don't act like most normal people do they? Mr. Rouser, he could tell you. I mean, think about it. They think above that way of I just want.
Okay, we have an illustrious Jakeem. Brother Jakeem is on with us today. Yay. I just seen you on mute. Tell us what you want to add to that conversation. I'm loving that, Pastor Archie. You're absolutely right. Illustrious Jakeem, my brother.
Greetings, family. Pastor Archie, great dialogue. And what I would like to add, because this is your show, that it is very important that we cultivate an environment that is able to aggregate this science, because this is part of what we call the esoteric, meaning the hidden knowledge or the hidden way of understanding the self. This is the science of the self, which was the most important thing to cultivate. Therefore, being able to cultivate from within what you want to see, or the being that you are, then you can better see that outside of yourself. And I think one of the ways we could definitely start with the children, just like the brother Lavelle Rouser explained, elementary deals with the elements, going to them and showing them that a tree is highly related to your lungs. It is the lungs of the earth, things of that nature, the roots, those are like the veins in, just like a river is the veins of the earth. And to be able to show them these types of things helps them to not only garner much more of a respect for nature, but most importantly, a respect for themselves. And thank you. This is a very, very good topic. I appreciate you all.
Thank you. We appreciate you. We appreciate you a lot. So you're absolutely right. And I think Sister Keena mentioned before how she trained her son about respecting other people by using an ant bed. So there are many, many ways that we can use to make allow our children to beware how connected we actually are. And we must do that, because if we don't do that, we're going to find our world. We are responsible, guys. Everyone on this call, on this live, and even the people that are not on here are responsible for everything you see in your universe. And I know that you would say that is absolutely not true. How can that be true? I am not responsible for the sickness I see. I'm not responsible. But every time we have those types of things in our heart, in our mind, we are mirroring those things. We talked about that in another episode, but we mirror what we see. So what Pastor Archie is talking about today is, even with that root chakra, if we stay there and just look out at the world and allow our children to learn from the world, to learn from the media, guess what? They're going to mirror everything that they see in the media, everything that they see in the world. So if we teach them, as Kina said, and some of the others have said on here today, and illustrious Jakeem, if we teach them about nature, how we're connected to that, then that's going to allow them to see how we're connected to each other. How can I want to kill my brother or my sister if I know that I'm connected to them? If I feel that connection, how would I want to go to war and hurt them? I don't care what country they live in. Why should you teach me that your enemies should be my enemies, regardless of where they live? And when we teach people how to connect through nature, as Kina and as you mentioned, Pastor Archie, I would not want to go in and hurt my sister, brother. I would not want to rob them of the things that they possess, because I would have that respect for them. And that is going back, and we're still talking about the 10 spheres of the spirit. But as Pastor Archie said, some people stay down there in the root chakra. It's about survival for them. They never reach a higher level because it's always me, 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 me. Okay, Pastor Archie, I know you wanted to add some other.
Yeah. Now it's you have to understand, and I always relate back to church, and ever since I met my wife, that's when I come to understand. That's when I was introduced to the church and holiness. I came up in the holiness church, but I see, I can't help that God put me here the way that I am, but I see things and I notice things because I was a boy, good Lord of mine. Now I know that I was acting as an animal real bad. I mean, I was a total animal, and some of those attributes could jump back up if I don't watch it, But my point, I want to understand, people to understand, is that it's one thing to define something and then say, oh, that's me. Just like we talk about the 10 spirits. Everybody just say, oh, we are just like God. But baby, you have to evolve. You have to grow. It's just like we talked about the 3-year-old that has the ability to become a great person, but at the time it's latent. It's there. Just like you mentioned, Mark, about divinity as an adult, it's there, but you must evolve. Defining something is totally different than knowing. The Bible even says, we perish because of lack of knowledge. God wants to express. See, God, up at 0, there's no things. There are no things. There are no things up at 0. And 1 is where you become to understand exactly who you are, and that I'm connected to every person that's on this screen this morning. I cannot say that I love Mark and hate Lowell, Mr. Rouser. It's no way. I don't care what you've been taught. It is no way that I can say that I love a Black man and hate a white man. Because love and hate cannot operate in the same space, y'all. It cannot operate in the same space. When you get up to that level, my wife used to joke me a lot. She used to, and she introduced me to being saved and living the life. But I've learned some stuff, y'all. But Kana, that's not a problem with those ants, because I wouldn't even kill an ant. As I began to grow, I wouldn't kill an ant. I didn't want to kill a bug. I didn't want to destroy anything in nature, because I understood that they had lives to live too. And that could be a little funny to some people, right. but you got to understand, as you grow and elevate in the spirit, you see things as God see them. You can't say that, well, yes, I'm just as God is now. That's easy to say. But how do you treat your brothers? Your natural brothers, the ones that your sisters, the people around you. God does not act the way that you, some of us are acting and call ourselves godly.
Well, I want to ask this. I want to ask this question, Pastor, and you're absolutely right, Pastor Archie. You cannot treat each other, kick each other around and say, I'm where God is living and lives in you, whether you act that way or not. God is there, whether you, whether you treat people good or treat people, God is just there. It may be not awakened in you, but God is always there. You can't remove that, but that's why you are able to move around, because of the spirit of that lives within us. But my question, I want to ask Brother Lavelle this question because it's kind of a numerology kind of. So what is it that what is that thing from the age 0 to when a child goes off to college or whatever? Because we talked about the age 28 when they come into themselves. So Brother Lavelle, could you just give us maybe 2 or 3 things of what a parent can do that will help that child on their path to being or reaching that higher level, so that by the time they get 28, man, they are there? What are those things that they can do? Maybe 3 or 4 of them.
Okay. One of the things is to understand is to become somewhat familiar with the cycles of life. It's a very critical period by the time that a child reaches the age of 7. Okay. At the age of 7, that's when they are going through a lot of physical development. And then from age 7 to 14, they go through more of a emotional development. And then from 14 to 21, that's when we really go through a heightened mental development. And then from 21 to 28, we should, and I say we should, that's when we should embark on a spiritual development. But that doesn't always happen in this society that we live in because of the commercial and industrial complex that is set up. So many times, a lot of our young people, they're lost between the ages of 7 and 14. So 7 and 14 is a very critical time. And their education should be something of tantamount importance from 7 to 14, because that's an emotional period. And during that emotional period, that's how they're going to develop a sense of self-consciousness and self-worth about themselves. So that's a critical time. So I would tell all parents, at their critical period of age 7 to 9, you really need to watch your child and pay attention and see where they are developing in terms of their education. Now, one thing I want to say about education, we need to understand the word education comes from a Latin word which means educare. Educare means to draw out that from which is within us. So all of us have something within us, okay, that we are carrying that needs to be brought out. There are fabulous teachers, instructors who are capable of doing that, even in the social construct of an educational institution. But it has to be something a little bit more, because when you begin to talk about these numbers, these vibrations, as Brother Pastor Archie has brought out, it's not something to overlook. It's not something to gloss over and to think that, we're studying some sort of rote language. When I say rote, I mean R-O-T-E. It's like, that deals nothing with more than stimulus. That's right. Stimulating you to be like I want you to be and not who you're capable of being.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Brother Lavelle. So one of the things you talked about is understand the cycles of life. So parents, really, we need to make sure as humans understand the cycles of life, not only for our children, but for ourselves, right? Then you talked about, between 7 and 14, that's the emotional. So we got to understand, as Pastor Archie talked about, in the spirits of the spirits, what types of emotions are our children going through, and what types of emotions that we may not have learned this either. And then, of course, 14 to 21, they're going to have a heightened sensitivity. Most times their heightened sensitivity is of having sexual relationships and all this stuff. So if we haven't taught all this other stuff on an earlier age, they're going to be just out there. So this is a really interesting conversation. And I know that we almost are out of time, and I wish we could keep going on it. But what I'd like to do right now is I'm going to, I see that my niece is on, Katrina Sanders, and we have some great people on. We have people from Australia on, Carmi today, Cassandra, Boss, Trucker. We have a lot of people on. But what I'd like to do, if our audience have anything they like to say, we're going to go around, do a round robin, let you ask a question or say whatever you like to say. But at the end of that, I'd like for Katrina Sanders to, if she has something that she wants to say about her business, promote whatever it is that she's doing. I want to give you a couple minutes to do that. We like to do that at the end of these sessions. But before we do that, I'm going to go around and just take a second. If you have anything you'd like to say or regarding this topic, ask a question to Pastor Archie. This is the time to do it. Okay, I see. Hey, yes, Denise, how you doing, my sister?
Good morning. I'm gonna say this, and I'm just gonna go by my experiences. I just turned 50. My experiences and what I've learned, and like where I came from. Like I was adopted, and I think I was chosen. God chose me, and my family chose me, and then I got a brother. He was adopted too. Like that's the only thing I can claim to say that's mine because I chose him. And I feel like, I've seen kids that been in the system and been adopted and the things that have happened to them. And I feel like, I feel like I was chosen, that God chose us. And I feel like that I and my brother are spiritual, and he just, I don't know, he's just a whole nother monster. But at the same time, he has this internal thing going on. But at the same time, the streets keeps him from, being that internal light source that he is. But he knows all of these things. But what I'm saying is that experience is a good teacher. So no matter what our parents have taught us, like with me, I still had everything that my mom and dad taught me was inside of me, but I still got out and I still had to experience these other things so I can understand, life on life's terms. Because if I had not, then I would have been a victim of being sheltered and just, the things that they had given me. So I had to get, what the world had to give, and also what they had to give, and what I know about my God and my Jesus and the universe. I had to learn the universe stuff at, almost at the end of the journey, or the middle of the journey. But I think is okay, we can instill all the things, the necessary tools. We can give them the tools. But as a child, that child is going to go out and experience these things on their own. So
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right about that, Sister Denise. You're absolutely right. That's one of the reasons I know that Pastor Archie said that we should be able to move back and forth. And I know in the chakras and even in the 10 spirits, you are moving. You can go from root chakra to the highest chakra. We should be able to go up and we should be able to go down. We have to deal. You got to know when to run when something is at you. You don't want to stay in the higher consciousness all the time. Say, oh, the snake won't bite me or the dog won't bite me. No, you got to know when to run. And how would you know if you like the light if you never experienced the darkness? So we're not saying that this is where you stay out all the time, but we do believe that you must be aware of it all. You have to have that experience. You must learn those things. But where do I want to reign at? That is the key. Do I want to reign all the time in root chakra? Always afraid of everything, always trying to get everything I need because I don't think I can get it. Not understanding that I have you know, that everything is available to me. Like, you know, so we want to just stay down here where like everybody got everything, I can't have anything. So you're absolutely right. Experience, life teaches us. But the key is to move and to flow back and forth and know when to do that. You know, like they say, you got to know when to hold them and know when to roll them. That's
Right.
what this is all about.
So what I'm saying is, I think it is your journey, like understanding your purpose in life. So it is for you to, you know what I'm saying, be on this wave or this journey and experience all these things. But that you're definitely right. That seed has to be deposited as a child. And, you know, like it says in the Bible, you know, that child won't depart far from that. You know what I'm saying? They will stray, but they will always come back. So it is imperative that we deposit that seed.
That's right.
And yeah, we're going to go away, but we're going to, yeah, we'll always have those seeds that have been deposited.
That's absolutely right. So what we're going to do now, because we are, sorry, and I love that comment, Sister Denise, that's absolutely right. But we are out of time. So what we're going to do real quick, go around with our masterminds here, SRC, the contributors, and let them leave us with that thing they want to say. And then Katrina, if you are ready at the end, I want you to do a shout out about your business if you want to. If not, then if you don't take your mute off, I know that you're not going to do that, but I just want to give you that opportunity. We will start with Brother Lavelle Rouser to what are the ending thoughts you want to leave with the audience?
Okay, I'd just like to reiterate what Brother Pastor Archie brought to the conversation today. It's wise to understand, you know, the sphere that you enter into, but it's also important to know the developmental stages. And those developmental stages, as I said, are incremental. Every 7 years, every 7 years, you're going to go through some sort of change in your life.
Great, thank you for that, Brother Lavelle. So now let's go with Sister Kina.
Yes, I would just leave the audience and also just reminding myself too that you are the most important person in your life. And as we are encouraged by each other, we're edified by each other, and we learn from each other. Those are all great things. Just don't compare yourself to others, and don't allow a spirit of competition to make you feel bad about where you are in your growth and development process. You know, go at your own pace, focus on yourself, and be grateful for the fact that you're aware of these things. And just keep going, just keep moving, keep going forward.
I love that. You're absolutely right. Brother Mark Thomas, what do you want to leave our audience with today?
You know, I'm just gonna go with what Archie was talking about, that we are all divine, and that in order to, I mean, we have divinity within us. We just need to discover that, but you have to have purpose in doing that. And so, and that is often taught, just like Lavelle and Brother Archie said. So that's all I got.
Thank you for that, Brother Mark Thomas. Okay, Pastor Archie Sanders, let me let you give the ending word. What is it, that one thing you want to leave our audience with today? You're muted.
I tell you, this was awesome. Now, I must say to the audience that our spirit, we are all born with God in us. No matter what you were taught, some of the things you hold on to and you get stuck because of all the things going on around you, but know that you can live, you can evolve to the higher consciousness in you. You don't have to get God from your parent. You're taught things, but know that God is in you, and as you develop into the higher consciousness, you'll begin to see exactly who you are, regardless of what people have said that you are. You'll get there.
I love that, Pastor Archie. Regardless of what people have said about you, if you just tune in, you will get there. You will see who you are, not what people have said that you are. I absolutely love that, love that, love that. Okay, Katrina Sanders, are you on with us?
Good morning, Auntie. How you doing?
So great. How you doing?
I'm good. Good morning, everyone. I'm Katrina Sanders, Pastor Archie Sanders' daughter, my Auntie Ann's niece. Also go by, Minister Trina. But I am located in Savannah, Georgia. I have a home care agency in Virginia, one in Georgia, a clothing store here in Georgia, which my dad is helping me out with out here in Savannah. Also renewing my real estate license. But I also want to say that I'm really enjoying this platform where I'm learning so much more that I did not know. And even with talking to my dad, sometimes about, neurology and things like that you guys speak of, it's really an eye-opening platform for me. So, I'm going to tune in as much as I can on Sundays because I'm really enjoying it.
But thank you so much with that. And you can definitely share your website out on the chat line for those who want to go online. I know you have an online store, and
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so share that out there. SRC, we're talking about shifting religious concepts, which means also that we want to make sure that those of us out there who are in business, also we help them. We buy from them. The same thing. If you're looking at the TV, you're going to. I won't even promote some other company on this show right now, but I'm just saying we go out and buy from everybody else, but we should always look in our circles, who's doing what, who has this particular item that we can get from our own brothers and sisters before we go outside there. We like to do that every week, is to promote what someone is doing. And with that, I know that Mark Thomas is probably going to want to punch me in the eye or something because we're so over time. But Pastor Archie, great job. We enjoyed everything today. I wish we had more time today, but we will be back next week, I believe, right? Mark Thomas, as I turn it over to you.
Yes, we will be back next week. That would be on April 10th. So we hope you all join us. Let me just give you a little bit of information on SRC. All of us at SRC, of course, we want to thank you for attending today's presentation. We really appreciate and encourage you to email us at, your questions or comments at shiftingreligiousconcepts.com. That's shiftingreligiousconcepts@gmail.com. Sorry. And don't forget, this presentation will be available on YouTube really soon. Even if you attended today's program, please go to the Shifting Religious Concepts channel on YouTube and give us a thumbs up and subscribe. It's one of the few ways we get public attention, and it really helps to promote the SRC mission. If you're not subscribed to our newsletter, go to shiftingreligiousconcepts.com/registration and join us. So as Anala said, our next presentation is on Sunday, April 10th at 10 o'clock Eastern. And so please join us there for more conversations on the power of human connectivity. Until then, y'all, we wish y'all peace, health, wisdom, and love, of course.